Welcome to the Past Lives Cafe. I am your host, Keone, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. Come with me as we journey through the spiral of time to forgotten places. I am so happy to introduce the beautiful and multi-talented Melissa Gentile-Bishop. She is a psychic medium, successful business owner, and holistic coach who embodies the essence of wholehearted living. Melissa's holistic approach includes not only personal development, but also guidance on physical health, emotional intelligence, and spiritual growth. I met Melissa 2 years ago and can vouch for her incredible talents, and she always impresses me. She was kind enough to allow me to facilitate a past life regression session with her while I was interning as a QHHT practitioner. And for that, she'll forever have my heart. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have such an interesting story, Melissa. Why don't you give us some background?
Well, I have always been someone who took the tough road in life and decided that I wanted to learn from my experiences, and by doing that, sharing with other people how they can flourish in their lives and create more love. So at the end of the day, everything's about love, right? Putting out love and loving in multiple ways, and also just loving yourself. And when I learned how to truly love myself, I could show up better in life and show up for people differently, and understand that it's okay to ask for your needs to be met, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to have bad days and to be different and not perfect. I just love to share that with other people and try to help them on that path of being their authentic self, letting go of limits, just allowing themselves to be completely free. I love living in a space where I can truly be myself.
I love that. And you can absolutely tell that even with Melissa's clients and the impact that she's had in the community, what a positive light you bring. And everyone that I hear that talks about you is always so positive. So well done.
Thank you.
So tell us about your spiritual journey, because you and I met during a vision board session where we were putting our heads together as to what we wanted to accomplish, not just from a business standpoint, but also from an emotional, physical, and spiritual standpoint.
Yeah, so I'm here to tell you that the road is a little crazy sometimes, which I love. It's like every time I think I've gotten it, another curveball comes with another lesson. But that's also the beauty in it. Like, being on a spiritual journey is a path of continuous self-discovery and evolution, and evolving into something greater with each step you take. So I love living in the present and not in the past, and not in the future either. Just being able to be present is the biggest gift that being on a spiritual journey has done for me. Despite sometimes the days where I'm like, this really stinks. Like, oh my God, I feel, or I don't know what I'm feeling, or I don't know and I just keep plugging along. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's why I had to learn that lesson, and be able to show up more fully for myself and for others. So the spiritual journey for me is the most beautiful gift I've ever been given, because it allows me to continuously grow, continuously be in a place of seeing everything around me and the beauty of it. Even in the most difficult times, there's always light. But the other thing it helped me do was it helped me understand that it's okay to have shadow too. And I've learned to melt those parts of me that I didn't always think were so pretty into this wild child that also exists. And I love her to death. She blends with my light side, and it just allows me to stand fully in who I am, not discarding part of me because I don't think people are going to like it.
It's interesting you say this, and I realize it could be catching you off guard, but you seem to think well on your feet.
Yeah, sure.
Shadow side of us has been widely discussed as something that either needs to be resolved, integrated, worked through, kicked to the curb, or otherwise file 13. So I find it interesting that your approach is more so accepting that side of yourself. So, how do you do that without it derailing your journey?
Well, I think it's the part of me that fights. So that's why I have to accept it. It's the part of me that helps me survive. So why would I want to dismiss that? It's the part of me that got me through struggles that otherwise I probably wouldn't have gotten through. So I think that's beautiful. And I don't think we should look at it in a negative aspect because it is part of me. It is part of me. I just know now how to use it correctly. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
How do we use all of those aspects of ourselves in a fluid way that allows us to fully embrace life and challenges in a balanced perspective? So when you come out fully in shadow, yes, it comes across dysfunctional. It comes across as this or that. But when you use it with some light work and you balance it with something else, it kind of allows you to have that little bit of fight still and do what you need to get through to the next step. So that's why I chose to go with acceptance.
We're saying you're not resolving that area of you to discard. You're understanding it and knowing when to use the positives when you need it. It makes so much more sense to me. I always thought, oh, I have so much to resolve.
Yeah, no, because it makes it difficult. Like, I think that we have to look at ourselves fully as beautiful and just learn how we want to use parts of ourselves. And that's why I chose to take that approach with it. Works for me. And I think it works for my clients as well.
I think it's just working for me now. One of the things that you just said makes me want to ask the next question as to why you allowed me to facilitate a past life regression with you, since you are so present focused.
Yes, I love living in the present, but I'm also aware that we all have patterns and cycles that we go through based on past life experiences. And I knew internally there was still something unresolved that I wasn't able to see myself. And I really wanted that resolved. So for me, although I'm living in the present, I still had this kind of area where I didn't always feel fully safe. And I knew I had to. And I knew that something was holding me back, and also understood it was somewhere in my subconscious. So I needed someone to help me do that. And, girl, I'm all about taking risks. What's the worst thing that was going to happen? I don't know. That's me. Like, I just want to continue to heal. And I trusted you, by the way. So that made a big difference for me. I think you should do things like that with someone you trust, because you are allowing them to walk you through experience it was difficult. But at the end, I was able to breathe and know, and then go, okay, now I know.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing because as a newer intern, obviously, one of the things we learn is to expect anything. I'm glad that you mentioned the trust factor because, at the end of the day, the past life, whatever one we come to, has ended, and it's typically not ending well. So for many people, they're fearful of fire, as an example, because they may have been in a fire or tragically lost their families. Or I've had people be scared of having anything around their necks, and then to learn that they've been hanged in the past, or that was their experience. And so I think, to your point, to have someone that you trust to lead that experience for anybody out there who's looking to have a past life regression is very important. And then secondarily, what you said was, well, you're a risk taker, but what you're really saying is you had an open mind.
Very
to
true.
see
Yes.
what could come forward. But you are a risk taker, which I love.
That is very true. I'm open-minded, and I have experienced that past lives are real, like, and that we come back with an ability to learn the lesson that we didn't learn previously. So I want to learn the lessons. I like to be a good student.
That's right. That's a perfect comment you just made, because I wanted to ask you whether you thought past lives actually had been experienced or whether they were constructs in our mind as maybe manifestations of doubts or fears we had. You kind of
Um,
said you believe it.
I fully believe it. I have had moments of recall of other past lives. I have done group regression before and have vividly seen myself in other lives. And when you do it, it helps you put together some things, like you said before, that you may not have understood about yourself. Like, why do I have this fear of something that I've never experienced? How can this be part of my existence now? Well, because you've carried it with you from a previous life. So, yes, it's definitely in my belief system that we reincarnate and we have things that come with us that we haven't dealt with.
You're very intuitive. When you're working with a client as far as getting psychic, I presume visions or impressions, do you
Mhm.
ever see their past lives?
If I do an Akashic record reading where that is the focus, then I will go in and do that. For an intuitive reading, they're getting that. If I sense there's something else that's not resolved, then I may say, let's do an Akashic record reading. We'll figure out what questions you want to ask, and we'll go in and we'll look at those records and see what we can find. And then we would take that step.
You're focusing on obviously whatever the client is needing at that moment, but you definitely have the sight or the vision to be able to tap into the Akashic records, which is
Yes.
super amazing.
Yes.
And I heard from others that have experienced it incredibly healing.
Yeah, it's like connecting the dots. It's like, sometimes our life feels like puzzle pieces that are misfit. And when you know where they fit in, it really does allow us to flow better within our existence. So it's actually really enlightening, which is wonderful.
You mentioned that you had not an extremely comfortable past life experience when you and I were working together. So, if you feel comfortable sharing what your experience was, and then we'll just kind of deconstruct that at the end.
Sure, sure. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but I'll go into a little more detail. So I have actually, prior to our experience together, this was how I felt before that experience, but now it's been resolved. And this is why I think it's wonderful for people to do this kind of regression work. I always had this uneasy feeling around certain people and had this need for safety, physical safety, consistently around myself, to the point where I was very methodical about everything I did, from getting out of the car to how my house was set up, all kinds of things like that. So I knew that something was there and I wasn't sure what it was. And it was almost like a gift. No, it was a gift when you contacted me. One, that I got to support you in your journey, which I always love to do. Two, because I was like, okay, the universe put this on my lap. Maybe this is part of that issue I'm having, this thing that just won't go away. And that's why when we met, I said that's where I wanted to go, because I felt very strongly that it was a healing experience that I needed to feel more comfortable. And, when we went into the regression, I knew right away that it was exactly what I needed, subconsciously, of course. But it's just so interesting. I mean, if no one's ever experienced it, it's like watching yourself. You're awake, but you're not. And it's just, and you just see it. You just see yourself in this space and you're telling this story. And it's almost like a movie, but you know that it's you. You can feel it in your body. And like, I remember my whole body was just responding to everything. And I was like okay, this is really where I was. And I was a little girl, and I felt so unsafe, and I was being abused by someone in this situation. And it was scary, but it was also like, okay, um, I'm ready to walk through this. And I was grateful you were there, because I knew that I was in a safe space to just kind of let go. And I remember, because some of it you're kind of there, but you're not. So I just remember crying a lot and wondering why someone would hurt a child. I'm forever grateful that I was able to walk through something that I needed to let go of, basically, and experience to let go, because I didn't know what it was that I had to let go of. So that was the most difficult part about it. And once I knew, then I was able to go, okay. I mean, some people may not be okay like I was. I was just like, whoo, I was just ready. I was like, wow, okay, this makes sense. Okay, I'm not a crazy woman. I kind of thought maybe I had been like, I really wanted it to be like I was this cool warrior in the past and just wanted to fight everybody. That was what I was hoping it was. Gotta tell you, like, I was a little like, but I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense too. Okay. So yeah, I would have really loved it to have been a warrior princess story instead, but hell, I'm a warrior in my own mind. So
I thought the experience, as you were expressing, I thought this person is brave. That little girl that you were speaking from her soul. I just kept feeling how brave she was. I was concerned for this little girl. I felt as if I was in the room with you as the child, which is interesting because I'm a mom. So the first thing I want to do is take care of you, right?
right.
Um, because I mean, that's just the first instinct that most parents would have. Once you kind of went through the various scenes and came to very specific realizations about that abuse, I was so relieved for you, but also concerned, obviously. But it's interesting that you said that it's like you're there, but you're not, because a lot of people are fearful about going into that deep meditative state, but you're able to do it very easily. What would you recommend to people who are nervous about getting there or think it's not going to work for them? What do you recommend?
I have a daily meditation practice I've had for years that definitely helps you drop in, because when you meditate, sometimes you are letting go. I've meditated and all of a sudden I call it my waking up. All of a sudden, like, oh wait, I'm really in life. Let me go get something to eat. It's about allowing yourself to trust something that's unknown, which is that there is love all around us. And in order for us to heal, we have to trust that our higher power, whatever we believe, is there with us. And this is their way of helping us in this life, in our journey on this earth, so that we can evolve. So that's how I always look at it. Like, I wouldn't be put in a position unless I needed it to better my existence. And that's what I would say. Let go, relax, trust the process. Whatever your higher power, whoever that is, or your spirit guides, just talk to them and say, protect me, see, be with me while I do this, support me, and allow me to experience this healing in the most beautiful way possible and release what no longer serves me. So I always want to release what no longer serves me, and that kind of what kind of supports me too, and just allowing myself to let go and
That's
doing it with someone you trust. I mean,
right.
ultimately, you have to trust the person you're doing it with.
I love that the meditation process, as you said, that's something that's just part of your spiritual routine
Mm-hmm.
that you do on a daily basis. And I think that is a really smart recommendation because a lot of people feel like they can't get quiet enough to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just stop. to not put expectations on it, but just to sit for as long as you can, or lie down, or whatever, move, go running, whatever it takes. I have felt that when people have some sort of meditative practice, that they have more easily been able to regress.
Absolutely. And this is what I always tell my clients about meditation. So meditation is absolutely a practice that you have to build. It's not something that you turn a switch on and it happens, right? So for me, it started with just 5 minutes a day. And I had to use visuals because my mind would always drift. And I had to practice patience with myself. This isn't something that happens overnight. You set aside a distinct time every day for 5 minutes for yourself, and you sit in meditation. And then as you start to feel yourself drift better into the 5 minutes, then you move to 10. But it's not going to be like bam, bam, bam. Like it took me years to get to the point I'm at. So lower expectations, be kind to yourself, and give yourself that ability, because then it gives you more control over your mind and your mindset, which changes your reality and allows you to create more of your thought process, which empowers you. So why not empower yourself? Empower yourself, people. Just do it.
That, at the end of the day, is what I was hoping to achieve when pursuing past life regressions, was to allow people to tap into some clarity, some realization or recognition, to allow them to empower themselves, whether it's understanding why they're scared to have a scarf around their neck, or why they're scared to death of water. I've had people who can't get in boats actually face some things and then use that experience to then empower themselves. So I think you're totally right on. And you said way more eloquently than I ever could what it is my goal was with this whole thing. Thank you. I can now move on.
Anytime, honey, anytime.
When you were doing Akashic record clearing, can you think of any experience that fascinated you the most? Or did you find any Xena warriors when you were doing clearings?
I have found some, I have certainly found some goddesses and some interesting characters that people were, which is always fascinating, because then they get to study all of these things about it and figure out how they can embody that still in themselves. Yeah, so I've definitely had some interesting things, and I've also had like wound healings that had to happen because of multiple losses in childbirth, maybe that they've seen over time frames, and them not understanding why they have this void feeling in their stomach all the time that just exists there. I've had that happen. It's really a good way to enrich a person's spiritual journey.
I think we're always surprised at what bubbles up. Dolores Cannon, who started the QHHT process, would call it the digging potatoes live, where people were farming or they maybe worked in an auto body shop, meaning they weren't Cleopatra. And they tend to think that because it wasn't a hugely significant time period or nothing melodramatic happened, that it's not important. Yet it's got to be important, right?
Everything's important. Every step we've taken in our journeys gives us perspective and power to know what to do differently or how to help other people. So there's always a lesson in everything.
What do you think the big lesson is? Are we just going to keep having past lives until there are no more lessons? What do you think we're aiming for?
I feel like our lesson is to understand our higher purpose. We get very caught up in the day to day, the mundane, the work we do, and lose sight of what our true human purpose is. And that's to spread true love and connection with others. And I think it's that simple. It doesn't matter what your job is. A lot of other things don't really relevant. It's about creating a loving experience so we can connect to each other and nourish the environment energetically with love and healing, and continue to heal the things around us that need to be healed. So next phase for people can continue to grow in love. And that's where we kind of tend to miss our experience. Our true purpose isn't how successful we are at our jobs. It's not even, and yeah, we want to be good parents, but it's about how we show up for ourselves, because then we can show up for other people. Because until you show up for yourself and know what your purpose is, what is your true purpose? That's a question I get all the time. I don't know what my purpose is. We're wandering around wondering what our purpose is. Our purpose is to love. It's simple, and nobody wants to be simple. Everybody wants it to be complicated. It's simple. Our purpose is to love. When we love ourselves, everything else comes into alignment. We value what we truly need and what we truly want in our lives, and we value things around us, and we're able to bring into our lives what we need to be fulfilled. And then the train stops because we've lived the life that was entitled to us, which is to be happy. Spirit wants us to be happy and wants us to live a happy life and have good experiences. But darn it, we want to struggle.
Why is that? I've heard every theory about, I love the Buddhist way of looking at things, which is it's just an event. You put the suffering into it,
Yes.
right? Or maybe we were meant to suffer, so we realize the gift. I don't like that very much.
Well, I do think it's about us forgetting that our body is just what we're embodied in. We are a soul. We are a living soul. And we forget to live through our soul. We live through our body. So we're creating all of this chaos in our mind based on experiences rather than choosing the thoughts that make it something different. Right? Because our mind chooses our thought, and then that chooses what feeling we have. And that's why I'm a big proponent of meditation, because when you can meditate, you can stop that process and really create your destiny. We're in charge, but we want to act. It's not the external factors are not in charge. Everything around us is a fact. It's a circumstance. We can't change that. The only thing that we can change is how we respond. So that's what we're supposed to do. To live in peace, we have to respond with love. That's all I can do some days. I've had some instances where it's like, okay, I want to tell this person, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. We can make it complicated or not, but it is that simple. And I have learned that through years of working at this. Yeah, I can choose to be negative Nelly, or I can choose to say, okay, that person did that. I'm not going to respond this way. I'm going to love myself and love the situation and figure out what I'm going to learn from it and move forward.
So it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yes. Yes.
You said your clients, the biggest question they have is, what is their higher purpose? What is their biggest obstacle?
Our society trains us that we have to react to everything, that we have to work harder to get ahead, that we have to always be on the move, that we can't be in peace. Oh my gosh, don't sit still. We need to spend time talking to spirit so that we understand that we're connected and how they want to guide us through this life. We're here to heal each other. I do think there are healers per se, but we're all healing each other. We need each other to heal. That's why we live together in tribe, right? So that's our purpose, to heal each other, to come to the table with kindness and figure out what that means and stop putting our ego ahead of it.
I feel like a lot of the problems that just in general societies have is we've lost the connection between who we are to each other. The Native Americans, my mom is Chickasaw and she grew up on the Northern Cheyenne Res. And she always taught us that animals and plants and the soil are our brothers and sisters. Yes. The same way that you're and whomever else is a brother and sister to me. So it was always impressed on us that we're all part of one big community or one big family that shares a specific soul. But I think when you're in the middle of trying to pay your bills or someone is having a crappy day and they, I don't know, cut you off on your way to work, it's hard to remember that.
That's why we need tribe.
One of the things I've noticed in doing all of the past life regressions. And part of the QHHT process is doing a pretty lengthy interview. You and I knew each other, so we didn't have to go through the super lengthy process. But part of that interview is to understand the person and what they want from this session and to understand their background. And also, if anybody pops up that we happen to recognize from what they share with us, we can say, oh, was that your dad that you had talked about, or did you feel like that was your sister in a past life? That's part of the reason. But the other part of the reason, obviously, is to establish trust and rapport. Mm-hmm. Saying all of that, in that lengthy process, probably, and I've done probably 75, 80 sessions at this point, almost but a handful of people tell me how terrible they feel about themselves. They feel unloved. And I'm sure you feel this and experience this with your clientele also, Melissa. Mm-hmm. They feel unloved. They feel unworthy. They are also questioning their purpose. Most of the people that I talk to do not feel like they fit in. And so my question is, if none of us feel like we fit in, then maybe we all do. I'm not sure. But I'm stunned at the level of, I don't know if loathing is too strong of a word, but how much as a community of people, we hate ourselves or think we're not worthy. Mm-hmm. And it surprised me and it hurt me because when someone's telling you how terrible they feel about their role in this life, I can't imagine feeling so desperately out of place 24/7. Yeah. So I'm wondering if you see the same thing and what you do with that.
So I have one thing I always share with people, and I like them to think of this. Comparison is the thief of joy. So that's a big part of it. We tend to compare ourselves to everybody around us when we should be our beautiful, unique selves. That is the beauty of life. If we were all the same, it would be boring as heck, and we should be our unique selves. I have this beautiful program called Revolutionary Love Program, and Di Pine so graciously allowed me to work with this project with her. What we don't understand, a lot of us, is that most of our patterns are developed from 0 to 12 years old. So our 12-year-old self is basically running our lives. Yeah, I know, it's pretty messed up, right? So this beautiful program allows us to connect mind and body. So this program allows us to release energetic blocks in our body that stops us from feeling worthy, or that created that shame and that guilt from all of these belief systems and upbringing patterns that we had and ways we were taught that we should be loved, and whether they were positive or negative. And it reprograms the flow of the body so that we can live fully in ourselves. To be trained as a practitioner, I had to go through the program, and I could tell you that it has been the most phenomenal experience for me and has allowed me to stand in my authentic self more than any other thing I have done. And I am forever grateful for it. And I love sharing it with other people, because sometimes we need to reboot. And this is what this does. We do cycle the same patterns every 10 years. So whatever attachment styles we've learned, only 49% of people have a secure attachment style. So we end up in these dysfunctional relationships. So this is why sometimes we struggle to have community too, or tribe, because we don't know how to connect, or we have anxious attachers connecting to secure people and all of this stuff. So understanding how to love yourself through this program and letting go of those blocks that bring out those dysfunctions or those feelings of shame, guilt. I mean, the list is endless. But getting them out of the body, we forget how much we store in our body. Traditional medicine has us say that we have to override our brain, our minds. But if we do that, but we haven't dealt with where it is in the body, then we're disconnected.
I see. So I can try to override everything with my mind, but if every time I'm thinking or reliving a pattern, I feel like my throat is closing, which is what happens to me when I get upset, then I should be paying attention to that. and
Yes.
trying to figure out why
Yes.
I'm responding somatically.
Yes, we need to listen to our body. Our body holds it. And then when we connect our body, our mind to our body, then we start to heal more. And that's why I do somatic movement as well. We hold trauma in our bodies. That's how we end up having muscle amnesia and all of these things that automatically happen. That's how our mind body functions. Trauma causes restraint, pulling back.
And so that connection between mind, body, and spirit truly is an integrated system, not something that should be looked at or treated in a silo.
Correct. Yes. Program integrates, mind stuff in with the body release. So, yes.
I really appreciate your sharing that. If anybody wants to reach out to you for more information on this program, how would you recommend they get a hold of you directly?
Contact me through email at melissa@wholeheartedstudio.net. If they're interested in the Revolutionary Love Program, they can just go directly to that website, which is revolutionaryloveprogram.com.
Perfect.
Thank you for having me. I love spending time with you, so I appreciate it.
All right, Melissa. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you for joining me today. Please check out the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a safe space for all spiritual seekers, which I co-host with Chloe Brown. And remember, we can't relive the past, but together we can heal it. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in my services, visit me at www.quantumjourneygo.com or drop me a note at pastlivescafe.buzzsprout.com. Stay well and be present.